All right, going over this part two because I just that's how it has to be. Horror films of the '70s. Like I said, I'm not going over the major stuff. I'm going over the underrated stuff, the stuff I think is underrated, and I'm also going a step further, showing, my lack of, steadfastness or my lack of horror credentials. The movies that I haven't seen. Right? So, now, see, when a stranger calls, I mean, just the beginning of it is the best. Right? You know, the guy's like, you know. So what do you want? Your blood all over me. It's like, Of course, remember though, the first film to have where the cop goes, the call is coming from inside the house. Get out of the house. Is actually Black Christmas, not this film. But anyway, all right. So going through here, these are the TV movies. All right. Whoa, this film, and this is very triggering now, isn't it? Right? Man, I even forgot the other two stories in this. Of course, once again, Matheson and Dan Curtis. I mean, Richard Matheson. How many, how many amazing things is his name involved with? Okay, but Trilogy of Terror, man, oh man, this thing, the way it would just run out, the way it would scream and growl and like just bite her, stab her. I swear, when I saw this on TV that night, I couldn't. For the next week, I looked at, like in the dark. This thing was hiding to get me. So, and also like Karen Black, very talented actress. Once again, like kind of like Mary Warner, like attractive, but because she plays a character actress. She plays like a lot of psycho roles. Something intriguing about that. I like that. So Matheson again. Okay. Of course, he scripted this. I mean, I don't have to tell you both the sequel and the original Night Stalker, man. Darren McGavin, right? Carl Kolchak. The TV show came from this, and the Night Strangle was actually really good too, right? The scenes of the real life Seattle Underground, right? The Underground is Seattle. So this is in Vegas, and this is in Seattle. And eventually, the show, is supposed to take place in Chicago. So, but man, the Kolchak, I don't have to go over this. Right? Once again, the horror is always very atmospheric. The horror is always serious. Carl's can be funny, but the real dynamic in the show, I always say, what makes the Night Stalker so great is his interactions with all the different people. And these two, I gotta say, Vincenzo and him, probably the greatest platonic love between two men that you ever had. Like affection that these two have for each other. This guy's always yelling at him, but you know that he respects this guy, and he sacrifices a lot to cover for him, and he sort of rips on him, but you know that he's like, yeah, this guy always goes to bat for me because they respect each other. They're comrades. So anyway, I know that's not horror, but gargoyles. Remember, this is still all TV movies, right? Gargoyles, man. And young Stan Winston got his start doing special effects in this. And Cornell Wilde, remember him? Naked Prey, um, Red Beach. Uh, yeah, is in this. I like, and Scott Glenn is this. He's like one of the teenage guys on the motorcycles. But this film, this must have influenced The Hills of Eyes a little bit, but just the creatures in this, and they show up right away. I always thought this was a really good film. Mayhem film, just straight up. The humans and the gargoyles fighting each other. Alright, this film, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, right? Kim Darby. I told you about this film, right? When I was a kid and I was watching it I guess I'm spoiling it, but the end, right? The little goblins that live in the cellar. When they drug her and they tie a rope around her and they start dragging her slowly down the stairs, okay, into the basement. I remember, like, as a kid, I felt helpless watching this. I wanted to go in the TV and I wanted to save her. Right? What a little idiot, right? So watch out for number one. But I guess naturally my affinity was to try to protect and save this poor woman. Of course, she hears these little voices. Everyone thinks she's crazy. Everyone's insulting her, and it doesn't. And they leave, and basically because they don't believe her, you know, the end that happens. So yeah, man, what a creepy movie, dude. Yeah, Frankenstein, the true story. I like it, the true story, which is to say, totally not what's in the novel. It was on for 2 nights on NBC. That's interesting. I actually have I found a used bookstore the script, a book for this, where it's basically done like a script, like a play. A very interesting film. The creature, right? Yeah, Jane Seymour is in it, and she's like, I didn't realize when I had first seen it, but she was actually the bride of Frankenstein in this, who was very beautiful and very, very manipulative and evil. So, and the ending of this is pretty cool too. I like how it ended. But yeah, this film. I actually had a DVD of this, but I have to watch it again. I haven't seen this probably since the early '90s. All right, Killdozer. I mean, Killdozer. Obviously, Clint Walker. Remember that dude, Robert Urich? Man, that guy. Great actors. But of course, Killdozer gets overshadowed by the real Killdozer. Remember, 2004. If you haven't heard of that, look that up. Boy, that dude, he went out like a soldier, bro. But anyway, so I want to wrap this up. I have never seen it. I keep hearing that this is like a truncated version of the whole show, except very violent and bloody, and almost everybody dies in this. That's what I hear. I haven't seen it yet. Once again, Dan Curtis. So they go through the actors here. The jury is out on this guy here with me. Really, really. Scarface is great. It's great comedy. I remember Sisters was actually with Margot Kidder. Remember Sisters? I remember The Fury too. The Fury freaked me out, man. But, dude, this is the movie. Phantom of Paradise. So it can't be rock. Horror movie. This is my favorite film from De Palma, so go figure. And the usual Lynch, Cronenberg, they deserve their thing. Paul Morrissey, this guy, I love this dude, man. I mean, he only made, I guess you'd say 2 horror films, but I like this guy. These films are actually like you hear about them, you hear about the gore, you see Andy Warhol's name associated. When you actually see the films, they're actually very well done. Very well done. And this dude is awesome because whenever they talk to him, you're like, oh, you must be some real hip, decadent, And he's like, nah, these movies, everyone's a creep in these movies. All the movies I do are about trashy people. So, yeah, it's like a very ultra conservative thing. So maybe it's an act, but, and Yui Lama. Remember Yui Lama with the Boogeyman? I saw part of the Tenderness of Wolves. It's actually, I'm glad I didn't see most of it. It's a pretty hard movie to watch, right? With the sadistic killer who preyed on young men and boys. Well, what would you call a guy that does that? You don't say it in here, do you? Of course, M is supposed to be like kind of like based on the same character in the Weimar Republic. Oh, can't imagine why there was a reaction to the and the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman is a weird film, and the Devonsville Terror I actually like the Devonsville Terror. The Boogeyman was weird. They make it seem like it's gonna be like some like in the vein of like Halloween, like a slasher film, and it is totally not that at all. Alright, so we're going to the British films. Although, shout out to Wes Craven. You know what? This guy, yeah, you think of Freddy Krueger, but right. Last House on the Left, Hills of Eyes, Serpent and the Rainbow. Those are better than... I mean, the first Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, is pretty good. But, I mean, I like his other stuff a little better. So now we go into the British film Scream and Scream Again. Now this is sort of like an anthology that wasn't. It's like a pseudo dystopian horror. It's hard to describe this film. And the Joker, this poor bastard waking up with a missing limb all the time, is very cruel, very cruel. But yeah, very interesting film. You know, all the Hammer stuff. Of course, Doctor Five. Doctor Five is such a classic. I mean, the way this is done, it's just like, I mean, not even just visually, it's hilarious. Well, it's hilarious while at the same time, what this guy does to people is so horrific. Okay, but somehow you want him to get away at the end. So there's a lot of, it's very interesting how that works. The dynamic here, where you root for the bad guy. Right? I'm always gonna bring up Twins of Evil. Peter Cushing is the hero in it, which is to say a witch-burning Calvinist zealot. Alright, and you get the Maltese twins, one playing the good girl, the other one playing the vampire girl. But I mean, Twins of Evil is like I said, going into the more violent sex era. Of course, I've always mentioned, I don't have to say about this film, right? Gender bender film that plays it, like I said, not campy at all, totally straight. Now, these Amicus films, these anthologies they did, Asylum, Tales from the Crypt, Torture Garden, all these things, The House That Dripped Blood. I gotta say, in some ways, they get under your skin a little bit. Especially some of the stories are so horrible, and it's not always. I mean, the people that have things happen to them, they don't always deserve it. Right? Like the version of the Monkey's Paw they do is pretty horrific, Anyway, and talk about a mean-spirited film, The Creeping Flesh, a Lovecraftian film, right? Cushing is sort of the foolish protagonist. He's nicer than Lee. Christopher Lee plays a creep, but I always say that Christopher Lee is ultimately right and more sensible than this very progressive-minded hero who actually causes the problems in this film because he's trying to do good. And this is a kid. This is a movie I saw as a kid where I didn't understand what was going on. This thing, when you get water on it, you know what happens. Right? It grows flesh. So, and it wants to get revenge because of something that's done to it earlier on. It's actually kind of funny, the ending. So, and Theater of Blood. I mean, these are not. I mean, people know these films. Love this Vincent Price film. I want to give it. Of course, Diana Rigg. What a beautiful woman. Very distinctive looking woman. All the murders are done. With Shakespearean themes against the critics that were against this actor. So, you're getting your pound of flesh, aren't you? So you got a lot of flesh to go around, it seems, with us, huh? But I want to just give a shout out to the very underrated actor here, Ian Hendry. Another one of those hard-drinking British actors, but Ian he's the hero in this. Ian could play a villain. Even in Captain Kronos, he was one of the bullies in the tavern. But like the Mackenzie Break, he's a very proper, conventional-minded prison camp commander with the mustache. Totally, I would say almost. I didn't even know that was him. That's how good he was at acting. So the late Ian Hendry, just a little thing for him. And the Asphyx. This is probably one of the horror film, gothic horror Poe-like films that nobody really knows about, but is very, very effective for not start having any major stars in it. The idea of cheating death, right, and immortality, but what the cost of that is it makes this a really good film, and a lot of people are realizing that this is a very well done, like Hammer style film. So, we're almost at the end here, which is good because I've done this. The Beast Must Die, of course. The Werewolf Break. Okay, never mentioned whenever they talk about. I mean, I'm gonna be real here. When they talk about African American or black protagonist. This guy is never mentioned in this film. This rich hunter guy who makes the ultimate sacrifice at the end. He's never mentioned in any of this stuff. Why? I don't know. And of course, I don't have. I've gone over this excellent film. They should have made a series of this. Brian Clemens. They did make a series of this though, but in comic form in the Hammer House Horror magazine. And that is all the time we have, and we have covered pretty much everything I wanted to, except maybe one more. Hold on.